Hi everybody and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine Weekend Wrap. Got Mark Keohane. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Kev.
Mark, let's quickly chat about what we can take away from the weekend with the Sharks playing the Bulls and the Lions playing the Stormers.
Well, finally, to see two South African teams out in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock kickoff was fantastic.
Yeah.
We'd love to have seen a crowd there. It was a very weird kind of experience, having so many good players on show. And I do find the intensity would have been greater if there was a crowd cheering them on. But just the interest in South African rugby, spoke to Craig Lewis, the SA Rugby Magazine editor this morning, and there was double the traffic. And SA Rugby Magazine's traffic has been very good in this off-season period through COVID. But Saturday doubled users, doubled in page views, so that people are just desperate for rugby. And we spoke in the build-up to it. We had the Bulls to win and we had the Lions to win on superior fitness at the altitude. I thought we were on track when the second half of the Lions game.
Who's we, Tonto?
Well, we both last week, and you were included.
Did I say that?
It was the headline, Lions and Bulls to take it. So definitely knew the Bulls would win. Also knew that there wasn't going to be too much to read into it post the first 40 minutes. That's when they both came out with their full strength sides, played with structure, played with intent. Jake White and the Bulls, everything we expected he would do. He'd come up very quickly.
Why does he get it right so quickly, Mark?
Because he is a very good coach, and technically he's very astute, and he understands how to build a team that then potentially can go on and become a very good, attractive, all-encompassing football team. He never comes in with illusions of grandeur to want to play great football and delight the spectators and the crowds and then lose.
But you say that, and I think it was 28-7 or 35-7 or something.
It was 35-0 after 35 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but again, you look at, he understands the dynamics, which Rassie also did when he took over 18 months before the World Cup. If you have a very strong pack and you have a very good spine within that pack, that also has skill to it, you can't go wrong. New Zealand went the other way with their pack. They thought to play the game at pace and at tempo for 80 minutes like no one could. They had to sacrifice their strong tight head props. They had to sacrifice their bigger loose forwards. And we've got it right, definitely in this country, from Jake, pre that, with Rassie, and then again what Jake showed with the Bulls. So very good front row. Dwayne Vermeulen, outstanding. And Arno Botha coming back from Munster. Massive, massive coup for him as well. Marco van Staden doing the kind of Richie McCaw thing, a menace, slowing the ball down. And then everyone kind of mocked him when he brought back, when Morné Steyn came back. 36 years old, class is permanent. Georg Aplan at 15, class is permanent with some wonderful...
He's almost 38, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, he's closing in on 40 as well. With some wonderful 7 specialists, and most of them out of the Western Cape. I think Aronson went to UWC as well, and then into the Sevens setup. And just, they play with flamboyance. And what I really liked was, and no one saw this one coming, that he took Cornell Hendricks, who was outstanding in his early years as a winner, that had the heart problems, thought he would never play again. He put him in at 12, and he really had an impact. Physical, strong. Morné Steyn playing that little pop pass off him. He made a lot of ground, a lot of inroads. I think that one took the Sharks by surprise, that 10-12 combination. And then two very good scrum-offs again, Van Zyl and Papier, and they play very differently. So very impressed with that first 40 from the Bulls. I do believe there's a disparity in terms of depth when it comes to, is your first choice and your second choice, how big is the gap? I think it's quite big there. And if they do lose a lot of those players to the Springbok squad, if they play in the Rugby Championship, they won't be quite as potent. But they'll do bloody well in any competition. The key, as we keep on saying, is once Jake has fixed them, does he have the managerial skills? Has he evolved to evolve his own team that he's fixed? Or will there be some sort of fallout in 18 months' time and off he goes somewhere else? But we've never disputed his talent as a coach.
No.
It's his longevity wherever he's gone.
Well, I mean, he's certainly working for an organization that's the most professional in terms of rugby in the country, especially with Patrice Motsepe's investment and Rupert's investment.
He's got the 2 big guns behind him. He's also been given carte blanche. I thought he really scouted very well. And he brought players back, senior players who he knows well, who trust him. But he also knows he's got a very, very good business backing. But they demand one thing as well. They demand victories.
Yeah.
And the difference here is where Jake did struggle a bit with the French system is at Montpellier, given the French nature, they didn't necessarily want to win. They want to play great rugby and get people to the grounds and that. So Jake's a win at all costs. Before the game, they asked him, is this a rebuild? He said, no, it's a reboot. We can't rebuild. And they said, is winning important? He said, every time you play.
Yeah.
So you got to get a winning habit. When he took off most of those first choice players, and the Sharks brought in their second tier players who are very talented, those youngsters. They've scouted very well. There was an opening up of the
Sharks?
game. Yeah, there was an opening up of the game, and they got back to, I think it was 35-26 at one stage, and you thought, they score again here, they could actually box it. And then there was a late try from the Bulls, and they went on. But best plays best. Compared to what we saw early in the season when there was another coaching staff at the Bulls, an absolute transformation of the side. But in context, it's the first hit out for all of those guys, and the mentality that there was may have been slightly different from the Sharks in just wanting to get a run.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, Jake, picks a good 10, mobile and physically imposing forward pack, and he's never going to be out of games. We chatted about that off camera.
Yeah, and you look, Rassie did the same when he had to rebuild Western Province and the Stormers. They had the best defensive record in the competition. They beat all 5 New Zealand sides in that 1 year. Not dramatically, but they beat them because the New Zealand sides, regardless of the backs that they came with, couldn't front the physicality of the South African forwards. And while Rassie's only got 1 against 5 and wins against the All Blacks and the 1 draw, it's been nothing in it in those games. And if you look at the World Cup, it was just magnificent New Zealand defence in that first 40 minutes that kept South Africa out. Yeah. They could have been 20 points up at halftime. And then 2 moments of brilliance from New Zealand took it 2 scores out. And then we slowly came back, ground them down. And it took a lot from them to actually beat us 23-13 in the context of that game. But yeah, hugely encouraging signs from that opening game. I felt the second game was a very different game. I don't know, and these guys played in the heat, so 27 degrees. Contrast of styles, just that Stormers pack is just
immense.
It's immense. But then you look at that Bulls pack, you look at that Stormers pack, and we were speaking off camera, the pack that's in the UK at the moment as well. Yeah. You could pick 3 test packs, and they wouldn't go back to anyone in World Rugby. So I think this is the strongest South African rugby has been when it comes to forwards, and it's the liberal we've been in terms of selections and coaches when it comes to identifying a different type of back play. Because we've seen 7 specialists introduced. We've seen the likes of a Colby type players come into the mix and not being disparaged because they weigh 75 kilograms or aren't 1.96. They are saying that guy's got a step, he's got skill. Now let's play him into the space to kind of do his business. So I think our rugby has matured in the last 2 years immensely, starting with Rassie. And Jake coming back in the system is good for the game. It's again, if he can manage his ego, he's going to be a huge asset.
Look, on the forward front, you're right. I mean, let's list some of the players overseas. Snyman,
Luit, Eben. I mean, look at those 3 locks, and then you see what was playing
Marks.
Here. Malcolm Marks not there. Vincent Koch, who was just magnificent in the quarterfinal win for Saracens. There are such quality South African players overseas, and you've got the Dupree brothers, Dan and Jean-Luc, that have been playing well. You've got Robert Dupree that's been fairly good. Faf has been one of the top 9s there. Yeah. You've got the likes of Willie Leroux that's playing. That's going to come back into the mix as well here. There's Peter Steff wasn't on show. Best player in the world. Our best back and our best forward, one's injured here, one's playing overseas. They weren't there to light up the day. So I think if you're a South African supporter and you looked at what was out there, you just got to think, wow, there's nothing that says we shouldn't go to France in 2023 with the confidence to defend that World Cup. Knowing that you get to a semi-final, it can be a lottery, but my goodness, I do believe this is the strongest our rugby has been since probably 2007 to 2011, that period.
Well, before you get too excited, because I can tell that you're very excited, and I agree with the forwards, but I mean, when you look at the pivotal position of 10 and Pollard being out, how did you think...
I knew you were going to do that. Back into the slumber we go.
I mean, how do you think Willemse and Yankees played? Are they ready to step up?
Look, Yankees will always look good at this level, and he's a bloody good player. I always think of Yankees as a Carlos Spencer. You will put him in most test matches and he will revel if he's going forward. I just don't think he's quite as good and ever will be as good as Pollard in terms of the makeup of what he offers as a test fly-off. So he was good. I liked Gianni Lombard, who played fullback for Paul Boys a couple of years ago. He came on and played at 10 and looked very good at 10 as well. He's got beautiful distribution skills. So Jantjies was the pick of them all. But we've also, the jury will always be out on him till he has a consistent season where he shows that he can control test matches, and he potentially was going to have that this time because Pollard is out injured for the best part of 6 months. I thought Willemse again was trying too much, playing very lateral. I loved him as a schoolboy and under 20 fly-off, and when he first came onto the provincial scene, I just haven't seen that progression in his game yet. And Kerwin Bosch, again, very disappointing in they have such natural skills and they can do so much. Sometimes you don't want them to do anything, but actually just settle, play their teams into field position, and then create that one bit of magic, and off they go. And when I saw the youthfulness of Kerwin Bosch against the old dog, Morné Steyn, and one completely outplayed the other, admittedly behind a very strong pack, but there was composure to Steyn. Started when the match started. He spotted a gap, and he put in the kickoff, which bounced and put them on the attack straight up. It's just that awareness, and again a reminder that we used to be in this country the type of people that want to write off. The minute the guy's 28, he's too old, or 30, he's too old. You can't buy class and you can't buy experience. And him at 10, the way Gio Applon then provided them with another dimension, showed the value of what youngsters can learn of them. But I was disappointed with the other 10s. Jantjies did what I knew he would do. Willems I expected more. Bosch I expected more. Tim Sweel, very good youngster when he was here. He went over to Harlequins. Never quite worked out for him. An ex-Bishop's boy. He's never going to play for South Africa. He'll be okay at 10 without being anything magnificent. So
it'd be interesting to see Kerwin play behind that type of dominant pack that the Bulls had. If he'd had a different jersey on, I do think that he's ready to step up.
Look, he's got every attribute as an attacking 10. It's again, how does he control a game? The one thing he doesn't give me is confidence that he's in charge. And then again, maybe it's been unfair on him because Steyn is 36. And he was someone who, in his first 50 tests, never got his due in this country.
Yeah.
He scored 31 points against the All Blacks when they won in Bloemfontein. People said, he's shit. I said, you don't score 31 points against the All Blacks, and you can play a bit of rugby, And it's good that he's come back. I can see why Jake invested in him and the former Sax fly-off Chris Smith, because it's a very similar type player, and the Marty's Varsity Cup winning fly-off, and said to Marnie Lubbock, you can go to the Sharks. And I think it's a good move for Lubbock because he will revel in the way they play. That's not, unless Jake had said to me, you're a 15 and that's where I want you to play, he wasn't going to invest in that type of 10, which is a very much a Damien Willemse type 10 as well. So it's having watched them for that first match, I can understand why certain moves were made. And I want you in and you're out. But you're spot on about the 10. That's why I've also wanted Robert de Preer to come through, because he's big and imposing at 10. He's got a good kicking game, but he's been a bit inconsistent at Sale. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the mix with Jantjies as the two 10s, as opposed to the 10s that are here at the moment. I don't think they're ready.
Well, at least we got our first sight of rugby. It was exciting from that point of view. Good to see the traffic coming back to SA Rugby magazine, and let's hope that we get more and more rugby and the boys start to gel together.
Yeah, and as Dobber made a comment that New Zealand came back into it within 3 months and then had a full-on competition in front of crowds. So there was an intensity that we couldn't see in the Australian games and the UK games. We've been out of the mix for 6 months.
Some would argue, though, Mark, that the crowd that was at Loftus on Saturday is the normal crowd that's been at Loftus for the last few years.
Well, I apparently thought it was the biggest crowd. I can't think of all those cardboard cuddles. But yeah, I was very impressed with the condition of the players, given they haven't really been together and they've been out of the mix for 6 months. And a lot of confidence for our rugby, which doesn't necessarily translate into winning the rugby championships as they go. But my goodness, we're in a good place. As you rightfully pointed out, a big chance for someone to step up and say, I'm good enough to play 10 for South Africa, and actually challenge Pollard when he comes back to say, there's another 10 here. It's the one area where overseas teams, the big teams, the Englands and the Islands and Wales and New Zealand's, we won't put Australia there just yet, would look and say, if Pollard's there, they look at us very differently to if Pollard's not there.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for coming in for your insights. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.